shared Canada-US district. I'm on the Canadian side. I'm the Youth Exchange Program Vice Chair, and I'm in Campbell River, which is on Vancouver Island. So happy to join and listen in today.
Lucky you, the most beautiful place on earth, Vancouver Island.
Thanks, John.
Hi, I'm Paul Perez from District 5960. I'm currently the district governor, so I'm on the board of directors for North Star Youth Exchange. My wife Susan and I and our family have hosted 2 exchange students, and we had our son who went on outbound exchange for 2015-2016 to Germany.
Thanks for being here, Paul.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll say it, Governor, that's very important.
Yeah, we are very lucky in North Star to have really strong support from Paul and our corresponding 5950 district governor in Youth Exchange. It isn't always the case, but we are exceedingly lucky this year.
Well, I'm Chrisanne Manolis, and my experience with Youth Exchange comes from the North Star District in St. Paul. However, I recently moved to Denver, so I'm calling in from there. And I was
Denver.
My kids came to school out here and never moved back, so I joined them here. And then I was outbound to Brazil a number of years ago.
Ah, there's Al.
Hi,
Hey.
Al.
How are you?
Good. We're doing just self-introductions. People have to just jump in and introduce themselves.
Okay. Well, I wish I was where you're seeing me behind here.
Yeah.
I'd like to move to that location for a couple weeks. I see Lou. Hi, Lou.
Al, would you like to introduce yourself? Just say what district you're from, what city, and your association with Youth Exchange.
Okay, Al Coulter. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, in District 6970. Been involved in Youth Exchange for 30 years. Spent the first 9 or so, or 10, I guess now, in New York. District Chair 7150. Moved to Florida 20 years ago. Started the program in District 6970. Then we created a multi-district, which I was the founding chair of and served in that role for 2 different terms for a total of 8 years. Now I'm happily retired from active responsibilities.
Thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
Rich, you're off mute. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Rich Kapp. I'm with North Star, past chair, followed Chrisanne twice. I'm on Lyn's board, so it's great to be here, John.
Thanks for being here again this week, Rich. Appreciate you attending.
Nice to see you, Rich.
Good to see you, Lyn.
Linda, would you like to say hi?
Yes, I think I said it before, but I now know why my picture wasn't up there, because I had a tape over the top of my screen.
Hi.
But yeah, I'm with a member of Eastern State Student Exchange, and I've been a member of that group for 20 years. And I've been a chair for 7390, headquartered out of York, Pennsylvania. And I've shepherded about probably, is it about 400 students, inbounds and outbounds over the years. So I've really enjoyed the program and working with the students, and plus I've also been the YEO for my club too. So it's just all of you that have been through the program, congratulations for having a successful exchange. It's when I see the youngsters, well, they're teenagers, but when they come back from their exchange and their eyes, you know, they're so bright and they've learned so much and grown so much. And then we have so many to help out later. My replacement this year is an exchange. She had been an exchange student from that had gone to France. So I'm so glad to turn it over to Rotex.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's really nice. If you, I'll just call on people that are unmuted. So if you'd like to say hello, then unmute yourself. And Greg White, you're unmuted. Would you like to say hi? Where are you from? Exchange.
My name is Greg White. I'm from North Star Youth Exchange. I went on exchange to Sweden in the 1960s. So I think I'm one of the older people here who's also been an exchange student. I was the Rotex coordinator for North Star Rotary Rotex for about a decade, and I'm currently working on getting retired.
Thanks for being here. Olga?
Hi, yes, Olga Ruvikamp here in Southwest Minnesota. I'm a fairly new member of the club, started just this year, but I was involved with the Rotary Youth Exchange program in Brookings and South Dakota and Marshall, Minnesota, which is District 5610. So that is basically South Dakota and surrounding area. So thanks, I'm very much looking forward to the presentation today.
Thanks for being here again, Olga. Let's see, who else? Jason, would you like to say hi? Where are you from? Connection with Rotary District?
Whoops.
Can't hear you. You're not muted. Try again.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, I'm Jason Bradley. I'm from District 5020. That's Vancouver Island, Canada, and Western Washington State. I'm the country officer for the inbound and outbound students for all of Scandinavia and the Netherlands. And I also look after all of the trips, like our Disneyland California trip and all the fun stuff. I'm the fun guy. I do all the
fun guy. Well, thanks for being here. Make the meeting fun. Juanita, you have to unmute yourself at some point. I'm calling you out specifically. Lindy, would you like to say hi?
Sure. Hi, Lindy Beatty here, District 5190 out in California. I'm in northern Nevada. I live in the eastern part of California between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe up in the foothills. I am currently, along with my husband, the co-chairs for the Youth Services Committee on the district level. So we're involved in lots of things, and we've been a host family, and my husband has been a counselor in YEO for the last, I don't know, probably about 10 years. And I'm really curious about this. As I emailed John, I said, I'm really curious about the concept of this e-club. And I did want to hear Lynn, because it's probably one of the only times I'll be able to get her. So I'm really excited about hearing her and then also listening. And Jason, I would be curious if you could send me your information, because we're trying to get into the Netherlands and I want to make sure, find out who you might be in contact with. So that'd be great. I apologize for not being on screen. My camera does not work on this particular computer, and you probably wouldn't want to see me in my grubbies right now.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure you're no worse than any of the rest of us, right?
I don't know about that.
Jason, you could there's a chat feature, and you could just do a direct chat with Wendy. Juanita, I have to just call out Juanita. I was an exchange student to Mexico, 83, 84. I was country officer for Mexico for many years. And Juanita is our partner in Mexico. And I'm just really thrilled to have you on the e-meeting today. So if you'd like to say hi. Hi, hey, there you are.
Hello, everybody.
What part of Mexico you're from, what district you represent, your association with Youth Exchange. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks to you. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm Juanita Ravelo from District 4195, and it's all the south of Mexico. So the district is made up of 7 states, and we have beautiful places like Cancun and Mérida, Chiapas. So maybe you can imagine in which area is my district. Also Oaxaca, where John was an exchange student many years ago.
Oaxaca.
And I was an exchange student in Japan 20 years ago in Asahikawa, in Asahikawa, Hokkaido. That is the North Island in Japan. And it was the best experience of my life. Then I returned and I start in Rotary at 26 years. And now I'm going to become district governor next year.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I have been involved in short term for 6 years in my district, working also with many districts in the USA, like with John, for long term.
Thank you very much. And I also have to call Juanita out. She got, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but you got married. You moved to South America, Colombia or Venezuela, was it? And you continued with youth.
In Quito. It was
in Quito, Ecuador.
Mhm.
And she continued with her position in the district in Mexico. So yeah, really committed to youth exchange and excited that you're going to be DG. That's awesome.
Yes.
Sharon, would you like to say hi, please?
Sure. I'm calling in from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm a part of Essex and District 7305. I'm also a former exchange student to Mexico.
Oh, awesome. Where'd you go?
Yeah, I went to Campeche.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is my district.
Is it?
That's Juanita's district.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I went to Ciudad del Carmen.
Oh, nice. In which club did you stay? Oh, sorry.
It was a little while ago.
Do you remember which club, Sharon?
They only had one club at Ciudad del Carmen.
Well, now there are like 5 or 6 clubs in Ciudad del Carmen. Well, but it must be the old one, the Ciudad del Carmen Rotary Club.
Yeah, probably the only original one. Yeah.
Yes, that's nice.
Then I'm also the country contact for Mexico for Essex.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
Let's see. Emma, would you like to say hi?
Yeah. I'm Emma. I was an exchange student to Finland 15-16, and I currently serve as the North Star Rotex president. And my parents are exchange students, and there's a whole family of this, but yeah.
Thanks for being here. Naomi?
Yeah, I can't see you guys at all. Can you guys see me by chance?
No.
And do you have the, if you
Well,
scroll up?
my computer has 100% frozen, so I might lose you soon. Who knows?
Well,
But
we can hear you.
that's good.
See you before.
I know I don't know. It's kicked me out twice. But anyway, I'm Naomi. I went out with the North Star district before it was called North Star 0809 to Lithuania, and I was involved in the Rotex and the orientation for quite a few years, and have gone on to do other things. But heard about this, and John was nice enough to include me, so excited to be here.
Really glad you're here. Thank you. Who did I miss? Sherry? And Stephanie, you're on deck, and
Me. Lou.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm Lou Mello. I'm from District 7770, Charleston, South Carolina. I'm a past district governor, past district foundation chair. Been involved with youth exchange for about 7 years now, and I'm entering my 4th year as chair. They talked me into doing it, say it was really easy, not much to do. And
And you fell for it.
I fell for it, yep. Thank goodness for Al Calder. Al is my savior with
Al has saved many of us, so nice to have you on. Let's see, anyone else would like to say hi? Just take yourself off of mute. Sherry, Lynn, Stephanie, anyone I missed?
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm from District 5050 on the Canadian side of a cross-border district, and I'm on our executive committee for our district committee. I'm the secretary, and I do the inbound and outbound coordinator role for the Canadian side.
Thanks, Andrea.
Hi, I just want to, I already kind of spoke. I'm Kelly, and I'm with 5890. I just got a message, Joe Groom. He is from North Star, and he wants to tell all of you hi, as well as you, Lynn. He goes, Lynn's president now? Tell her hi. So he just sent me a message. I told him I was on this Zoom call with a whole bunch of North Star people, and he got really excited. So he's on our committee down here in 5890. I was an exchange student to Belgium a few years ago, and but I went out of 5110 in Oregon. And something that's kind of cool with our group is we are going to have a Zoom call with our group that we went on exchange with. It's now been like 25 years.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there's 6, I think every continent almost except Antarctica is going to be on this Zoom call.
Wow, that's awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Stephanie.
Hey, John, it's Stephanie George. Good to see everybody. I was an exchange student to Brazil, and my other claim to fame is I'm Chris-Ann's sister, or Chris-Ann is my sister, I guess. Good to see everyone.
Lynn Keeler, would you like, thanks very much, Stephanie. Lynn Keeler, would you like to say hi?
Hey, it's not too often that I get to be Lynn K. There's very few of us. So I'm excited that there's another Lynn on the call. But my name is Lynn Keeler, and I'm with North Star. I've held various positions within the district, but right now I'm really concentrating on being a youth exchange officer for my club in Minneapolis. And I was also an exchange student to Norway in 1989.
Thanks, Lynn. Did I miss anyone? Raise your hand or speak up. Well, welcome to our E-Club, our Cultural Exchange Enthusiast E-Club. Just a little background for those that that have not heard of us before. We had an established E-Club, which is a new format for Rotary kind of around the world. I think to date there's, I don't know, between 200 and 300 E-Clubs. Most of them are E-Club of District blank. So we were chartered 3 years ago as the E-Club of District 5960, which is eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin, kind of the St. Paul, Minnesota side into western Wisconsin. We were moving along, but we were just having trouble getting traction. And last fall we decided, under group consensus, to kind of refocus on youth exchange. Changed our name, got new enthusiasm behind, and we've been having, you guys, so much fun with this club. We've had interviews from a former exchange student in Faroe Islands who married a Faroese woman and now lives there, runs an art studio, and a former NATO, base that's now the art studio in a prison. Just really cool stories. We've just had, we had one of the former inbounds from South Africa who joined us for a meeting. The format just opens us up, I think, to any interview anywhere, including our guest speaker today, which I'm just so thrilled that you said that you would be here today, Lyn Stroshim, NAYEN president, and just to really talk about, so segue into Lyn, welcome. Just really thrilled that you're here.
Thank you.
We are in crazy, unprecedented, weird, strange, sad times. So this is anyone involved in youth exchange, I think we're facing challenges that we never even dreamed about in our wildest nightmare. It's sort of the tsunami in Japan times every country in the world, times worse. So anyway, just really interested in hearing your presentation today, Lyn. But and I'm really glad that this E-Club could be a forum to bring us all together. I'm thrilled with the response and the number of people from around all three countries in the nine districts. We spent a little extra time on introductions, so I will just turn it over to Lyn. If you and just if you'll mute yourself, if you're not speaking, if you have a question, just jump right in and go from there. Thank you, Lyn.
Okay, well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for this invitation. This is, I think your club is kind of like the new normal these days, because I think most Rotary clubs are meeting online. So it's
ahead of our time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Ahead of that curve, Yeah. First of all, I hope that your students and your families are all safe. This is an incredible time. It has created unprecedented turmoil in our world and in our Rotary Youth Exchange program. As we all know, student safety is our #1 priority. And so this COVID-19 has really, it has shown the best of our program, but has also shown some of the holes in our program. I think we've all learned a lot through this. I think there's probably been more emails sent around in the past month than ever. So I think we've learned a lot on how much we depend on our exchange relationships. You see these relationships that happen often. They get started at a conference, and then they extend for years and years, sometimes decades. And I think that we've really had to lean on our exchange partners in this time of so much uncertainty and fear, when other people probably don't have those strong relationships that we do in our program. So I think it's going to make us look very, very strongly at our crisis management in our programs. And I think it's going to have to make us be a little clearer with our exchange partners as to what happens in a crisis. I think that so many of us have just had these wonderful programs, and the students have had such incredible years and learned so much. And we all know, and I love it that there's so many former exchange students in this mix, in this group. We all know the incredible impact that our program has on our youth and on our world, for world peace. But I think that this coming year, we're going to have to tighten up our program a little bit. There was this wonderful man that wrote me, and he said, where is it? He said, it's a time to rest, recover, reflect, and revise. And I think that's probably what we're going to be forced to do. NAYEN cannot take a stand. NAYEN is simply a resource-based organization, so we cannot mandate anything. We cannot make any proclamations. But what we can do is give our members as much support as we possibly can. And I think one example of that was this COVID-19 rebound course created by Dennis White and Larry Kubiak and Pauline Perot and past President Paul Reagan and Ricardo Ruiz. They saw a need, and they just jumped on it, and they worked solidly for about 2 to 3 weeks to get this course online. And I'm really, really hoping that you are all using this course with your rebounds, because this is an extraordinary year. We all know that the rebound process, and I say process because the rebound doesn't happen just in a weekend. I think anybody that's gone on exchange knows that the rebound process lasts a lifetime. I think we're constantly dealing with what we did on exchange and how it affected our lives. But these kids coming back this year, a lot of them are coming back with trauma. I think it's showing the resilience of our students. This is why it's so important when we choose students, that we choose those students who are incredibly resilient, that can handle anything that comes at them. Well, these kids have had an awful lot come at them. You know, some have been stranded in airports. I've heard some really harrowing stories of the journeys home of some of these students. And then other students are still in sheltering in place. So this is what makes it very important that we start to have even stronger relationships with our exchange partners. Because sometimes there's been, particularly during this pandemic, there have been some cases of inconsistent actions, especially when the hosting and the sponsoring districts have conflicting viewpoints about what course of action is best. Theoretically, it should be the hosting district that should be the responsibility of the host country, the host district, the host club, and the host family to effectively communicate with one voice about the well-being of each student. So theoretically, this should be a case-by-case process, because we've seen during this COVID that in some areas it's been safe and in other areas it hasn't been safe. In some areas, the district governors have been so afraid of the liability and the shutdowns that they've done a decree that all students go home, whereas perhaps in a neighboring district, they're doing it case by case. So we have not had any consistency at all during this time. And I'm not saying that consistency is necessarily the right answer, because it probably the case by case is better. But I think if we all had a very strong crisis management program so that everybody involved knew what was going to happen if there was a crisis. And I think all of us have a crisis management, but I think it was wearing a little thin sometimes in this situation of this pandemic. There was an incredible amount of fear, an incredible amount of uncertainty, and there still is. But I think people have now kind of settled a little more into the reality of what is right now. So I think it's highlighted an incredible amount of things that we perhaps need to work on. I did write to Rotary International. I've written it quite a few times, actually, really wanting to get a solid answer from them as to what is going to happen for next year's exchanges. And so this was my latest one, answer back, and this is from Jessie Dunbar Bickmore, and she says, I quote, Rotary International cannot compel any district to participate, nor should any district be pressured to participate beyond their means or willingness. And then she goes on to say, we are already preparing to support districts during the upcoming Rotary year, both that will continue long-term exchanges and those that will not. Well, if that's not sitting on the fence, I don't know what is. But that so far is the word from RI. I have heard that hopefully some people are meeting with Holger Knack, and Holger may give us some kind of direction for next year. But I honestly think it's going to be every district is going to have to determine for themselves what they are wanting to do. Now, there are incredible, where's my sheet that I wanted it? There are so many different unknowns for next year. The spread of the virus, it is still ongoing. We don't know. I don't think anyone's got to the top of the curve. I do know that Wuhan today has been opened up. So that's a good sign, but there also is talk of perhaps a second wave in the fall. So we don't know if it'll be contained. We don't yet have a vaccination, and they're learning about this virus every day. So the flattening of the curve could be extended, and we don't know how long the time will be that is extended. Also, we're dealing with government closures, government emergency measures. So the closing of non-essential businesses, of course, is affecting also our program, because it's affecting our host families, it's affecting our schools. Of course, there's home isolation and that social distancing, which is making it a bit of a challenge for our students who are sheltering in place. Yet I heard of this one boy, and he's in Italy, and he was saying that he works, he does his school with his host siblings in the mornings. In the afternoon, he cooks with his host mom, and in the evening, they sit up on the terrace and they play games as a family. So that's a young man that has absolutely embraced his exchange. And I know that, you know, Italy has been extremely hard hit, but that family has really brought that child to make him their son during this time. So it just goes to show what can happen. So the home isolation and social distancing also can have another face, though. It can have those parents that are working at home and that maybe the house is becoming very full. There might be younger children, and I think a lot of people are under a lot of stress, and they're also under a lot of economic stress. So these are factors that are in play right now. And extensions could be, we don't know how long the governments are going to keep these limits in place. Resumption of normal international travel, well, I don't have a crystal ball. Who knows how long that is going to take. So many countries have closed borders and also closed or limited airports. I've heard of a young lady that was coming home today, and she has had many diversions because a lot of the airports have been closed. Also, there's significant and unreliable air travel because so many of the airlines now are just not operating. So also we have to be aware of the timelines for processing visas. I was speaking to Steve Gerdes the other day, and he said that perhaps the guaranteed form, we maybe don't have to have that as long as we have the other things in place, such as the host families, the clubs, that type of thing. But the guarantee form has generally been a very important part of our exchange. So at the moment, it's hard to get a guarantee form because in most countries, the schools are still closed. Some for 2 or 4 weeks. Some have been closed till the end of the year. So that's another big question mark. Host families, well, I guess we can vet them over online, such as we're doing right now, but that still doesn't give you the feeling of when you walk into that home. Often you'll walk into a home and you'll just know perhaps this is not an appropriate place for a student. Or another time you'll walk into that home and they might not look so great on paper, but boy, you walk into that home and you think, oh yeah, this is everything's in place here. So government emergency conditions and public health recommendations are in play, and this is stopping us from physically going into those homes. In the US, they are not issuing any visas. So at the moment anyway, so this is why perhaps we can look at in-country exchanges for next year. For example, I live in Canada, and as a high school student, I did 2 different exchanges with my high school. One to a French-speaking high school, which was amazing because I lived in Victoria on Vancouver Island at that time, and I went to Saint-Pierre-Miquelon, which is theoretically in France. So there's a lot that could be done I think you could exchange even within the city, your same city, and get an exchange experience. It wouldn't be that international, but for 1 year we could maybe do in-country exchanges, and send our kids off, because I think so many of you have already decided and chosen. I mean, if you're on the right timeline, you certainly have your students for next year. And to have to tell these students they can't go, that's going to be so hard. So either an in-country exchange or a shorter exchange, for example, perhaps starting in January. Or you could maybe do exchanges to the Southern Hemisphere. You can't do an exchange with Australia, I'm afraid. They are not doing any exchanges next year, as are some countries. Some countries have come forth and said that they're absolutely not doing exchanges, but there are others that are. And then we come to the big question of economics. I think one of the worst things about this COVID and how it's going to impact our program is economically. Many host families are, they might not be able to host just from a pure economical stance. A lot of people are suffering incredible hardships, but there might be others that are okay. Another thing is, though, the Rotary clubs. This is an e-club, so you have a different funding model, but I think for the normal Rotary clubs, with the old model, where they have a lot of fundraising, or their meetings generate money, they might not have the money to participate in exchange in the coming year. So I think that's something that we have to be aware of. It doesn't mean that we have to totally not exchange, but we have to be aware that perhaps some of our old standbys, those clubs that we rely on every year, they might not be able to exchange for this 1 year. I was looking into district grants and thinking, well, maybe the districts would do a district grant for an exchange. And that is something that I know that Rotary International is looking at. So it's financials. And another thing that we have to look at is our preparations for the post-pandemic. So this has to be ongoing solution-oriented communication. It has to continue with your exchange partners, because so many, all of us have got applications that we have already agreed to exchange with our partners. A lot of us have kind of said, well, let's wait and see. And some people have already said, no, we're not exchanging. So it's all over the map right now. So I think any new agreements that you have with your exchange partners, and I think you're going to have to create new agreements. So it's going to have to reflect the ability of partners to conduct the exchange that you want to do, because our exchanges could look very different in this coming year. You have to start looking at the number of exchanges that could happen when you look at the economic situation. We need to continue to maintain electronic communication and support for all of our districts. I think the biggest thing with our program, as I said in the very beginning, is our relationships with our exchange partners. And I think we have to keep cultivating those, and we have to keep communicating and keep those very, very solid relationships. And I think we have to find creative ways to recover quickly when this pandemic goes, so that we really get into gear very fast, which will allow us to send and receive applications for the next year. So there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff. It has been just an amazing experience. As I said, it has really made me very aware of the solidity of our program. So let's see, I'm looking at the time. Are there questions? I don't know if I'll be able to answer them.
I'm not sure I understand.
Ooh, I did talk to you, Siri.
Thanks so much, Lynn. Just to summarize, one thing that I heard from you is, the necessity as we move the remainder of this year into next year into complete flexibility and really looking at new and innovative ways of operating that maybe we never had to in the past. And looking at ways of, maintaining something as we get through this collectively throughout the world. The in-country exchange is not ideal for sure on the one hand. On the other hand, maybe it is something that's doable for a year. Or you're right. North Star has between 50 and 60 outbound slated to go out, and to tell 50 or 60 kids that their year is canceled is a traumatic a traumatic thing. And I know some districts are choosing that course, but we'll see what the summer brings. You're right. The Wuhan, the latest news, if accurate, is encouraging. They've turned the corner, so we'll see what happens. So to the group, please unmute yourself if you would like to. Al Cantor has raised his hand. There's a raise your hand feature if you would like to do that. Please feel free to do that, or just unmute yourself and I can call on you. Go ahead, Al.
Hi, Lynn.
Hey, Al.
I agree that flexibility is important, but the Rotary Code of Policies specifically allows for one academic year long-term exchanges or several week short-term exchanges. One of the communications that I saw regarding Holger, his visit to Evanston, I guess it was last week, was that he was going to approach them about having that modified for this coming year. Have you heard anything about that? If not, is that something you can follow up on?
Yes, no, we are. I keep checking my email to see if there's if there's been something from RI, but as of yet, nothing. No.
Well, I'm not sure that it's going to come from RI because they're, as you said before, they're not taking a stand on anything. But Holger, I mean, can you reach out to him and find out?
Yes, and the regional leaders are also doing that. So we're trying to bend his ear.
Can you guys explain
our
who
champion?
Lynn, can you explain who Holger is and
Okay.
what influence he has?
Well, Holger Knack is a huge champion of Rotary Youth Exchange, and he just so happens to be the incoming Rotary International president for next year. And in that, the email that I sent to Jesse Dunbar Bigmore, I said, oh, here we've got the year of our RI president who's champion of youth exchange. And wouldn't that be a shame not to have exchanges during his year? So I'm sure he's just gnashing his teeth over this, wondering what to do. But I think we're still in a wait and see mode. So.
No, I agree with that, but I also think that if there's going to be a change or an exception made to the Code of Policies, that's probably something that needs to be action needs to start on that pretty quickly.
I know.
I don't think they would require a board meeting. I think that the secretary, the general secretary, could probably just issue a ruling. But unless somebody's pushing that along, it may not happen. And I don't know if that would stop anybody from doing a 6-month exchange, but it would put you in violation of the code of policies, which I don't think we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for the comment, Al.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have a question about that. If the policies say a 1-year exchange, like that's what we're aiming for?
The policy says this: long-term exchanges should be for 1 academic year. And when I first read that, I saw the word should, and I said, okay, we got an opening. But may be extended to include part or all of the holiday periods immediately preceding and immediately following the academic year. Students are required to attend school in the host country. And then for short-term, it says, short-term exchanges vary from several days to several weeks. They often take place when school is not in session and may not include an academic program. So a semester exchange, which personally I don't think is a great thing for the kids, but it's probably better than nothing. But a semester-long exchange not fit in on either one of those.
Lou, you had raised your hand. Juanita, I'm interested in hearing the Mexican perspective at some point. And then for the younger members who are Rotex, who are not actively involved with Rotary, I'm interested in at some point, your sort of response to this meeting. I don't want to get too much into the weeds of NAYEN and RI policy on the one hand and keep a variety of questions coming. Lou, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things. The first is that we already have all of our outbound selected. We already have most of our inbound applications as well, and so we've been communicating with students, families, etc.
Yeah.
And the important thing I think for everybody is, if you're going to try to do exchanges in 2021, long-term exchanges, is to proceed as normal as you possibly can at this point, realizing that things could change and change quickly. But the key I see is keeping natural parents and students informed every step of the way. I've been communicating with them at least once a week. And so far, the natural parents are all very hopeful that the exchanges can take place. So that's how we're proceeding. Lyn already described some of the issues that are going to be difficult: guarantee forms, host families, etc. And I've been communicating with YEOs and host families just to kind of like get them on guard, because we may have to do things at the last minute. The other part of the situation is that districts who are, in difficulty, particularly Italy, they have actually sent emails out to partners to say that they're hopeful of a normal exchange, but they're just asking, would we be willing to maybe consider a little bit of a shorter exchange, maybe December through July or January through July. So I'm open to that, and I understand the rules and conditions and terms and policies of Rotary, but I did see something from Rotary the other day, and I'm trying to think about exactly where I saw it, but it was giving us a lot of flexibility in terms of even like paying host families and things like that. So I guess the thing I want to mention to people is there are no Rotary police. We police ourselves in terms of what we do, as long as we're doing the right thing, we're vetting our people, we're creating an opportunity for exchange. If I can send a kid to Italy 2 months later or 3 months later, and they get to stay 7 or 8 months, I'd be delighted with that. I know their parents would be delighted. So the big thing is, where are we going to be with health protocols? Will there be vaccines? Will it be even safe to send kids out in October or November? I don't know the answer to those questions, but I'm proceeding as if it's going to be as normal as possible and just keeping my fingers crossed. That's about it.
Yeah, that's.
Thanks so much, Lou. Yeah, Lyn, any comments on that?
Yes, I totally agree with what Lou said, because as I said in one of my missives, that it is so much harder to get a program re-energized it's much easier just to keep going and hoping that things will turn out, because everybody knows we're in this state of who knows. So as long as we continue on and try our best and yeah, just hope for the best, because it could turn around. And as Lou said, it could not. So we can't just sit and do nothing, or we make that decision to not exchange and then we total rehaul a program. That, yeah, those are about the two choices you have: continue as normal, or decide not to and decide that, okay, our program needs to be re-energized, reinvigorated, whatever. So as long as you don't stop, as long as you keep going and let your district governor team know that your program is alive and well, because once your program stops, it is very, very hard to get it going again.
I have a quick question for everybody. Just you don't have to answer at this point, but of your outbounds and inbounds, have you had a great many return home? We've had just like 3 outbounds have returned home and 3 inbounds have returned home. Everybody else has stayed.
Lou, out of how many total? What's
14,
your total?
14 inbounds, we've had 3 go home. 11 outbounds, we've had 3 come home. So it's not a huge number, but I think the key was, as we communicated with the parents, natural parents, host families, everybody felt safer where they were, as opposed to running through airports and on planes and so forth and so on. So we still have a lot of kids in place. I got a girl in Belgium. She's in her 24th day of quarantine right now. So she's cutting her hair. She's doing Instagram like crazy all day long. She's having a great time.
Is she in 1630 in Belgium? I thought they sent all their kids home.
Well, we had a little discussion with Belgium, and we said, we're not going to let our kid come home if she's safer there, and her host parents want her there, and her natural parents want her there. I had the same situation with Japan. We had the same discussion. They wanted to send everybody home. Our girl is still there. Not because it's the greatest situation, but because it's a bit safer situation in the parents' opinion and in my opinion, because my opinion doesn't really count, because I'm not official at all. All I can do is sort of like lay out the facts and say, parents, you decide.
Okay, ours both came home from there. Lynn, I had a question. You mentioned the guarantee form. One of our problems that we're starting to run into right now is schools are not sure they're going to accept students next year. We've gotten from a few of our school districts that they have, well, they're not saying no, but they're not saying yes at all.
Yeah.
And they have until August 1st to make that decision, which could be a problem with the guarantee form. But if did I hear that right? We might not need the school information on that guarantee form potentially?
Well, I was speaking with Steve Gerdes, and he is a lawyer. And where's that piece of paper? I don't know where
Because I
it is.
think that if we process, they're going to accept the students, but waiting until August 1st is not really.
Lynn, I did some research on this a few years ago.
Yeah.
And we are the only organization that uses guarantee form. Every other organization issues their DS 2019s for US inbounds as soon as they get their applications. You don't need it. The consulates should not and will not ask for it. It's strictly a Rotary form that Rotary uses to know that a club has been assigned.
Yeah.
And it's to have that school signature and so on. But there's nothing legally outside of Rotary procedures that require the guarantee form.
Yeah, yeah. So this is what Steve was saying, that as long as you have everything else set up, like you have your YEOs, you have your counselor, you have a place in the school. The fact that that school has not signed off on that guarantee form is not legally binding.
Okay. So if we can't guarantee that we have a place in the school, does that make a difference?
If you what? If you have a guarantee that you've got a
Well,
place in
you don't know. That's what they're saying, is they are not sure that they will accept students.
No.
And they have until August 1st to make that decision.
Well, you could be like Lou and continue on as
Where
though
we are.
everything is in place.
Yeah.
And because it is a school exchange. Our students go to school.
One of the other questions that came up in our meeting last night was, what if we're still in virtual school? What does that look like if we want to continue with the program, if we're still in that virtual school versus actually going to school potentially early on, especially in the school year potentially?
Yeah, that was another idea that somebody said, that even if the child did not leave in July, they might be able to virtually be in touch, because some schools start in August. So maybe even if the child didn't have their visa yet, or they were waiting for their visa, maybe they could start school virtually over there and be doing their school. And then when their visa comes, then they go and they go to school physically.
It's an interesting concept. I had considered the virtual school once in country, but I had not heard the idea of virtual country, attendance in the host school, even if you're still, here and waiting for departure.
Yeah,
Interesting idea.
It's possible. And that's what we have to be looking at, is all the possibilities, is really thinking outside of the box for these exchanges.
And in fact,
Hey, Kelly.
Yeah.
Oh, could I really want to hear from Juanita in the Mexico perspective, if that's okay.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah, so Juanita, I thank you for attending, and I'm very interested. You represent 7 of the southern Mexican states. What's going on in Mexico? Are you in contact with other districts? What's the general thinking about exchange, with the US and Canada in particular?
I can tell you about my district. Okay. For example, in my district, like 2 weeks ago, I received a call from my district governor, and he told me that he was thinking about cancel the youth exchange program 19, the one that is on this period. So he sent a letter or notification to the district telling the inbounds and outbounds to come back to their countries. So he gave our students 15 days to leave the country. The inbounds, of course, was very sad. They cry a lot. They was asking like why they want us to come back to our countries. But the situation in Mexico is starting. Maybe it's the same like in the USA. So in Mexico, we don't have the best health conditions. It's not good that I tell these things about my country, but it's the truth. And for example, with the health insurance, we wasn't sure that the one that we are using here in Mexico, they don't cover the students for a pandemic. So it was very dangerous for us. So our district governor made a very hard decision. So he canceled the district conference. He canceled the trip that our students supposed to have in 1 month. So we don't have schools. Everything is closed, shops, restaurants, everything. So the students are at the host family now. So he preferred to tell them to go back. Normally in the year we have like 80, 82, 85 students. So now I think we only have like 15 or something like that, because we have many Brazilians and they can't travel because they are having a lot of problems for travel and go back to their countries. And today I also received a call from other district in Mexico in the north, and they are thinking about cancel the next period. So we don't know what is going to happen exactly in Mexico. The health minister is telling us that maybe in Mexico we are going to be safe around September or October. So we don't know what to do. And as Lyn told us, we have been receiving a lot of emails from NAYEN Talk, and they are suggesting to have like exchange in the same country with the districts of the country. But for example, in Mexico, I don't think that will work, because the dream of our students or their families is that our students go to a different country and learn a new language. For example, Canada have the that thing that they can learn French or improve their English. So it's easier for them, but for us in Mexico, it's going to be very kind of complicated. So we don't know what is really going to happen here, but it's a difficult situation for all the district governors, because we are afraid that if we stop, this can recover on a good way. So we are waiting maybe 1 month or 2 months more to see what happens, because we was waiting for for a real notification from Rotary International about what we have to do with the youth exchange. But it's like every district and every country have their option to go or stop. So we don't know yet.
Yeah, it sounds like, thank you so much, Juanita. It sounds like the same issues, right? Different countries, same issues.
Yep.
So yeah, interesting that your Brazilian students are, sort of stuck in place in Mexico as a result of conditions in Brazil and travel restrictions and whatnot. I see Aliki Hernandez, who is an inbound exchange student, North Star from Mexico, is trying to call. So call out to Aliki as his country officer. So know him well. Paul was our district governor, was his host dad. So friend of the district for sure. Thanks so much. And if people have questions for Juanita, feel free to do that too. I'd like to hear also, I know we're right at the ending time of our normal meeting, but some of the younger, Naomi, Emma, I'm looking around, who else has returned within the past 5 or 10 years? Some of the younger exchange students, your reaction to the whole situation, your thoughts on the discussion today, your thoughts on, the challenges and any insights that you might have as a recently returned student. And I see, Emma, you've taken yourself off of mute, so I'll call on you.
Yeah. So I think this hearing from Lyn has been very informative in terms of some of the factors that we don't see as students going out or as Rotex of financial situations of clubs. And so I think that was very helpful to get that broader perspective. But I think, yeah, with students now, I mean, first of all, don't forget the students that just recently returned. They're the ones that need our support the most. We had a Zoom meeting with all of the students that have come back, or a decent amount of them joined last week, and that was very helpful, just to have a place for them to vent and say, oh my God, this sucks. I don't like being back home. So firstly, don't forget those students. Those, I think you really need to prioritize them, and because they are going through crazy emotional, well-being right now. So don't forget about those students. But in terms of students going out, I think communication is key. Getting those, like whoever said about weekly updates, I think I would appreciate that. Even if it's just, we don't know, like we'll update you. It's nice to get that communication. But I think it's, yeah, alternative exchanges, whether that's a semester or whatever it is. But I also think offering students that are younger, so if you're in the US, if they're in high school and they still could do it a later year, perhaps offering them the option to do it later, because maybe they don't want to have to deal with this uncertainty anymore. So I think giving options of saying, okay, maybe you can wait a year and you can go, instead of 1920, you can go 2021. You've already been vetted, you've already applied. We could even probably get you to that same country. And that could give more flexibility for students. Let's say Australia, you were planning on going there and you can't, then maybe those students could go in that student's place. So thinking about that too, and giving students options, because if they're younger and they want to go for a year, are willing to delay it, I think that's also something to consider. But
it's a really creative solution. I'm not sure, Rich Cap, about the exact numbers of gap year students for next year versus high school students, but it's got to be about 50-50, I think, in our district usually is. Maybe, go ahead.
This year we have about 40% are gap year kids. So they've been notified to have alternative plans just in case.
Yeah.
We're definitely giving them updates weekly. The next orientation is like in 3 weeks, I think. I think we're having a board meeting, Paul, I think next week, to go over a little bit more of this.
Yeah, really interesting. And Emma, I just also want to say, and I think out to everyone on the call, don't underestimate the importance of your NAYEN president or your NAYEN, or I'm sorry, not NAYEN, your ROTEX, Returned Exchange Student Group, if you have one in your district, in really supporting these kids coming home. This is a traumatic thing for them. Anyone who's been an exchange student, the thought of having your exchange cut short by half a year, it's a big deal. And Emma, I just want to thank you for all you have done and will continue to do with those exchange students and leading the group of ROTEX here at North Star. Thank you.
Definitely.
Groom, you raised your hand.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Sorry, I kind of crashed the party here.
I'm glad you're here.
But thanks for the invite. So I went to Brazil, for those that don't know you, and don't know me, sorry. I went to Brazil, and I know Southern exchanges a lot of times are January to whenever, you know, kind of the opposite of what we typically do in the Northern Hemisphere. Is there something that is holding us back from what we've been talking about 6-month exchanges? Is there something that's holding us back from pushing to do a full year exchange, but starting in the middle of the semester rather than the end of the semester? Again, that's something that anybody that came from South America, went to South America, that's something that most of us dealt with. We ended up getting half of a year with one class or half of a year with the other class, kind of, it all really depended. And so I guess I'm wondering if that's a possibility. And then I understand that for gap year students, I was a gap year student, that there might be some visa issues with taking off 6 months between the time you graduated and the time you go and related to your visa. But I'm not entirely sure what the rules would be or what possibilities would be. But I wonder if that's something that we could look into as a alternative instead of doing a shortened exchange, but giving people the option to kind of go on that off schedule.
To do that full calendar year exchange. So it would basically be a 2021 full year exchange instead of splitting between 2021. Lynn, I believe you mentioned this in your presentation. Did you mention this as a possibility for some students, or maybe that's an idea that districts could look at?
Yes, yes, absolutely. You can look at anything. You know, this is the thing. You can start your exchanges later, and even RI has said that perhaps exchanges could start later. They said exploring alternative options, well, such as short-term youth exchange and develop, but also, you know, I loved it when Lou said there's no Rotary International Police. I think that we can do whatever works with our partners. If our partners agree to do it that way, then do it. You know?
Well,
I really do.
And I guess my point with it was just simply thinking out of the box, because I know most of the people that I see on calls or dealing with it are people that want on an exchange to the Northern Hemisphere and didn't really have to deal with the off-year situation. I personally did. So I went in, I had 2 different groups of friends, 2 different classes. I mean, they try and keep you with the same class as best as possible, right? You come in the mid-year, and then if at all possible, they try and keep you there for the following year. But I know some that it didn't work that way, didn't quite work that way for me. So I guess something to get people to think outside the box a little bit. Maybe that's an option rather than trying to immediately jump to, only doing a 6-month exchange or something like that. Because I think it's just as valuable and everything, and you don't have to necessarily start on the first day of school. It's a different exchange, but I did not start on the first day of school. I didn't even start on the first day of the second semester. So it's very doable, and it still can yield an amazing exchange.
Thanks, Joe. So much appreciate your comments. Aliki, as a former exchange student as well, a younger returnee, any comments that you'd like to make?
Oh, thank you for
This is
having
Naomi.
me.
I don't know if did you say someone's specific name, John?
Pardon me?
I just said, did you say someone's specific name, or were you just calling
Yes,
for anybody?
no, I did. Yep, Aliki
Okay.
Hernandez is on the call. He was an outbound student from Mexico, Cancun Club, to North Star in Minnesota. So I just happen to know him. I happen to know that he's a younger student and he represents Mexico. So I'd like to keep the meeting nice and varied in terms of participation. Go ahead, Aliki.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks for having me in the call. I just also crashed the party. Well, right now, thanks in Mexico, as Juanita mentioned, and I'm talking from the perspective of just a regular person living here and happening to know a lot of exchange students. It's getting kind of difficult. As she mentioned, things are just kind of starting here, but because of the culture here, it's very different to many others. We have had issues with people like going out of their houses and stuff. Specifically, I'm talking here in Cancun, which the police have taken quite a, I don't know how to say it, like other measures with people in general, like only one person can go out and stuff like that. And well, what I wanted to say is that I had a few friends that were doing exchange, and they were sent back home. Like they were here in Cancun and they were sent back home. But I think that was the best decision that Rotary could have taken, at least the clubs here in Cancun, because the exchange students right now wouldn't have been able to do stuff as regularly, and in this city that pretty much lives day by day, and including like people like exchange students, it wouldn't have been very I don't know how to explain it, like good for them to just stay at home, because they would have it would have created a lot of pressure on the exchange students, specifically because this city, it's like, oh yeah, you're in Cancun, like you're in a very touristic place and you're only staying in Cancun. It has created problems with people living here. So for an exchange student living here, it would have been 10 times worse. So I think that was the best decision they could have taken.
Thanks, Aliki. Yeah, we, in one of the previous E-Club meetings, interviewed 2 of our outbound students to Italy. Lynn, as with your example, one of them, one of the 4 students that were outbound, 3 have now returned, but 1 is still there, sheltering in place with the family, making meals, playing games, really integrating in a different way than I think what is normal, and certainly not what you expect. You expect to be out on the town square at night, not in the house for 4 weeks under quarantine. But I have to tell you what a great interview it was, and how positive he was. So yeah, you know, there are options, or you know, things can work out if the partner. Lou, I liked your idea of the host parents were on board, the natural parents were on board, you were on board, and the district was on board, and you came to an agreement just even with those 2 students. So that's nice. Let's see, Jason, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I got a quick question more for everybody for the group. We just got notification in our district from the U.S. Department of State. Who's reading it here? It just basically says that the Department of State in the U.S. is recommending all exchange students return home as soon as possible, and also recommending that you send all your exchange students home. What are you guys doing in your districts about that? Are you sending out as information for the families just as an FYI, and still continuing to work with the partner district? And if they're safe there, you leave them in place, or what are you guys doing?
Has anyone in the group had a district-wide return of all students at this point? You can unmute yourself. And no one?
Unfortunately, we did in my district, and I was furious.
Kelly, which district are you again?
We're 5890. All of our students came home first, but it started off with like the Japan and the Belgium, and then kind of here and there. And then as the State Department was elevating all of their stuff, it actually ended up being that almost every single parent decided to bring their students home, to the point where we just had one. And then we made the call with the district governor and everybody else that we didn't want them to be stuck indefinitely. And that also was with some of the host families as well, that were just getting real nervous with having students there because of, like, for instance, Italy with the medical system kind of collapsing, you know, behind. Yeah. And so that was kind of their calls, where they didn't necessarily, like, Italy didn't necessarily say they started to say we're going to send everybody home, and then they went back, and it was all this back and forth. And so, and then they made the call to send all of our inbounds home, but we still have some, our Italian students are still here because their parents are actually sick with the virus. And then obviously with the border closures, you can't get some people home regardless. I don't know if you guys have had anybody come home from Poland. I got our student on the last flight that was leaving. Wow. And then STA Travel was telling us that they were having to send students by armed Army Guard to other places to get them on planes. So it's been kind of a little bit.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Kelly. For districts that have not made that district-wide policy, it's clearly come up in discussion, I would imagine. What's been the rationale for working one-on-one, or what's been, you know, an alternative approach in your district? Why haven't you made that decision?
At North Star, we went with the parents. So I involved the parents of the inbounds and the outbounds. And it was a common decision. We gave them the alternatives, and the State Department said they highly recommend, but they didn't require either one of those options. So now we are just, and it's still now on a parent-to-parent basis right now still, except for the countries that, like Japan, wanted all their kids home. Hungary wanted their kid home. So it's still, ones that are still here, we have 60 inbounds, and we have 24 that have gone home only. But our outbounds are almost I'm guessing like 3/4 to almost all here.
Thanks very much. Other districts? Thanks, Rich.
I typed my stats on the side. It's interesting. We've had 4 out of 6 of our Canadian students return, yet we've had 5 out of our 6 Canadian inbounds stay. And then the US was a little bit opposite. We had 5 of the students leave the States, so that we only have 1 left in the States. And then only 1 has returned and 1 is going to return. And it's all been, well, it's been sort of mostly parent-based, say, except for Japan. Well, yeah, the Asian districts recalled their students, but there was also family requests for that. But the rest of them, our parents have been making the decisions.
Thanks very much.
So John, it sounds like everybody's on the same boat. They're all it's discussions, working with parents and other districts. So that's what we're doing. So I just want to make sure we're not doing something strange that other people aren't doing.
I think everyone, Jason, really great metaphor, on the same boat and all facing the same issues, and all, you know, Paul Perez is going to call on you just as a district governor in terms of difficult decisions and the balance between making a district-wide decision versus allowing clubs versus your youth exchange organization. How do you manage, how does a district governor manage? It's sort of, you know, the ultimate responsibility in a way, and how's that been for you? Stressful, you know, I think you enjoy a very good working relationship with our youth exchange organization, so that's very lucky, but can you talk to us a little bit about the DG perspective?
Absolutely, thank you. As far as our youth exchange with North Star Youth Exchange, it's such a strong program, and we have such great leaders and passionate leaders. As a district governor, I appreciate that, because that's one thing that I don't really have to worry about. Certainly I'm getting the updates on what's going on, which I really appreciate, but they're just kind of handling things as they come along. making good decisions, getting the right people around the table to make those decisions. Just in general, we've had to cancel events like our district conference, like everyone else. Just try to move on, stay positive, support the clubs. You know, there's clubs surviving and strive, you know, really thriving. And you just watch those ones who were struggling before here. This all happened, and so that's kind of the concern, to make sure we're giving that support. But it's just staying positive, continuing to do different things, communicate with the clubs, with the club presidents, and just be there for them however I can.
Thanks so much. I think you pointed to a very strong youth exchange organization within North Star. Other districts may, with newer exchange programs, may rely more heavily on the district governor. I don't know that. I'm just sort of surmising that. I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that. A smaller program or a program that is newer or less. We've been around for 50 years, so we enjoy a lot of structure and support from an entire team. But for maybe newer programs, if anyone's on, or the district governor is a little more involved, any thoughts? Lynn, any thoughts from your perspective?
It's all over the map. I know in my district, our district governor, I think he got afraid, and he shut down the program in our district, which I was very, very disappointed, because it should have been done on a case-by-case basis. But it really depends on every single district, and that's why I think it's so important that every youth exchange committee has a very strong relationship with their governor team. That's so important. And I know this district governor very well, but he just, you know, the government of Canada said they wanted all their citizens home, and I think he just reacted. So
yeah, thanks for that. We're about an hour and 20 minutes. I just want to call out Nancy, Stephanie, Kirk, Lindy, and Natalie, maybe, as someone who haven't made any comments. Do you have any thoughts or comments? If you do, please unmute yourself and let us know. Otherwise, we'll start to wrap the meeting up. But Nancy, looks like maybe you have something.
This is Natalie, and I'm together in 5020 with Jason Bradley, and we're on the same page, so I'm happy to see that, and it's just really great to get perspective from everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
This is Stephanie. Just one comment I can make is that my son Sam was an exchange student in Italy. His younger brother is in upstate New York this year and is due to go home at the end of June. He's there with maybe 6 or 7 other exchange students, and he is from just outside of Milan. And when this all started maybe 3 weeks ago, he was notified on a Thursday that he would have to leave on Saturday. They were going to send everybody home. And then they realized that within Italy, they had stopped all flights, only one a day into Rome. And that's, I don't know, 12-hour train ride or something to Milan. And so in the end, he stayed, and the rest from all different countries were sent home that weekend. So it was just really it was really traumatic for him, for all of them, really, to have things cut so suddenly. And then, you know, he's still pending now. We'll see when he goes back.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else?
I just had a question.
Go ahead, Andrea.
What about the aging out? Like, it usually it has ages attached to our exchanges. And with those gap year students, does anyone have it? I'm pretty new to all this, so I don't know, how does that work with ages? It seemed when I talked to one of the people from Brazil, they had a lot more flexibility, including allowing students to audit university classes, different things like that. And I just wonder if anyone has any information on that.
If you
I'm the RO, and so we cannot issue a DS 2019 for an incoming student if they are older than 18-6 on the day the school starts. So the State Department will not let them in. I cannot generate a DS 2019 to get them a visa if they are older than 18-6 when school starts.
For the United States, for US,
For the United
correct?
States.
Yep. And there are, on the outbound side of things, well, not many countries, but a number of countries who will accept up to your 19th birthday on the dot. I remember a few years ago, Chrisanne, I don't remember if you were district chair at the time, but rushing a student over to India like days before his 19th birthday. It was, had to get him in country by the 19th birthday in that particular situation. But I know short term, Juanita, if you're still there, you still are short-term chair. I think short-term allows exchanges up until, gosh, what, the age of, someone help me out, 24, 26? I think the short-term
Okay,
program.
for short term, for the one that is family to family, we can make from 14 to 18 or sometimes 19 if the match yes, if the match is have the same average of age. And we also have the one that is for new generation that is from 18 to 30. So sometimes
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Thank you.
yes, kids with 32 years. So it's okay. It depends the district.
And is that a full year program? I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, it's not a full year, is that some sort of an alternative, for this coming year for our older students who might get past that 19-0? Your birthday's in older September, you can't travel out, you're a gap year to begin with. What other options within the Rotary Cultural Exchange, set of programs might be possible, might be something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the New Generations is a wonderful program, and it's just based on us excuse me, on a student's interest or on their proposed vocation. So it's a great program because you are often in with a business, and then you come home because so many kids can't get a job because they don't have the business experience. So, or the working experience. So this can give you some working experience, even if it's international, which maybe counts for more. And then they can come back and hopefully find a job. But it is an alternative, the New Generations. And also the ambassadorial scholars, they also have the green light for next year. So yeah,
we'll see.
It's all over the map. There's
well,
one thing.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, a closing statement, if you would. We have about 3 minutes here.
Yeah, that every Monday on YEO Talk and on NAYEN Talk, the COVID-19 newsletter comes out. And in that is listed all the different countries and whether their schools are open, whether they're going to exchange next year. So it's another resource that you can use. And please, every rebound students, particularly this year, if you could, if all the YEOs and the experienced Rotecs, if they could do the program coming home in a coronavirus world with their exchange student, and they can go back to this program several times. And it also, there's parts in it for the parents, there's for the students, for the YEOs. It's a really good program, and I really would encourage everybody to have a look at it. And we would prefer that the YEOs do it online with their rebounds, or we have the Rotax doing it online with the rebounds, just
Good
to
idea.
generate conversation, because often these kids don't know what is bothering them, but to get them talking, then often stuff will come out. And for them not to be afraid, you know, these kids have been they've been traumatized. And a lot of them are so upset that they didn't get to say a proper goodbye. They didn't get to see all their friends before they left. They didn't get to do their trips. So it's really important that these kids talk. And the YEOs, the counselors, the Rotax, and also there's a guide for the parents too. So it's a great program.
Lynn, while you were speaking, I did find the link online and I put it into the chat. But if anyone didn't get the link, I simply Googled Rotary NAYEN Rebound online training and it popped right up. It was the first thing. So
you can find it on the NAYEN website, and you wait about 5 seconds and then poof, it comes.
It comes up. I'm wondering if everyone who has their screen turned off, we always like to do a group photo screenshot at the end. So if you have your screen turned off, you can temporarily come back, put your face up. We'll see, Juanita, Andrea, Kelly, Aliki.
I don't have a camera, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Joe, do you have a camera? If not, no problem. Okay, well, I'll smile on 3. Look at your cameras. 1, 2, 3. Okay, very good. I'll send that out to the group. Thank you so much. This has been really just a really tremendous meeting. We, in our e-club meetings, end our meetings with the 4-way test instead of starting the meetings with the 4-way test as a way of kind of going through the rest of our day or evening with the principles of Rotary fresh in mind. So if we can say this together, the 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it
the truth? Is it
fair
fair to
to
all
all concerned?
Will it build
goodwill and better
friendships?
friendships?
Will it be
Will it be
beneficial
beneficial to all concerned?
And is it fun?
And is it fun? Exactly. Juanita, next time you'll have to share this with us in Spanish and we'll all muddle through with your, under your direction. Thanks, everyone. This is a really wonderful meeting. Lynn, I can't thank you enough so much for your time and for being here and for your leadership during this difficult year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just please keep communicating. That's the main thing. That's key.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, well.
Thank you.
Wonderful meeting. See you. And I'll get a link out. Yeah, thank you. I'll put a link in the calendar invite and then I'll send it out to the NAYEN listserv as well. Okay. Talk to everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.